Hi everybody,
Hello everyone.
I'm Lynn with Plasma Energy Solution, and this is our daughter Steph.
Hello.
So today Steph and I are going to talk about the Plasmatic first aid chart, and I'll show you the chart because you can find this on our website, plasmaenergysolution.com. And this chart was formulated by a medical team that was studying the plasma energy several years ago. And the reason it was put together was, what if there were a situation where there was a disaster and you didn't have much to work with? And so the idea was that you had some of these basic Gans to work with. And so I'm going to go through what they are.
And this is, to be clear, for an actual like disaster emergency situation.
Right.
Okay.
This came about after the big earthquake in Norcia, Italy. And what happened is a lot of people in Europe that were studying about the plasma energy gathered together their resources, and some of them traveled to Norcia with their plasma energy supplies to help people out. And so some of the things you can do with the combining things that you get in the first aid vials or the first aid patches kit that we have for you, it'll tell you how to nanocoat copper on this first aid sheet, and then it will say different systems that you can use, like sprays, compresses, drinking water, inhaling, baths, and you could also set up fields where you could stand between the fields or have a pad that you're lying on and a pad that's on top of you, depending on what you're trying to accomplish. And
you have a video on how to make pads.
yes,
Okay.
and Steph and I actually did a real basic hands-on. I'm going to show Steph how to make pads. So you
refer to that.
Yes,
Yeah.
be sure and go look at that. And so let me show you first of all what's on here and the rationale for it. This is a chart that was part of the training, and I'm just going to hold it up so maybe you can get a screenshot of it. And that just tells about the relationship of the body and some of the different Gans. And so the Gans that you would get in the first aid kit, zinc, and zinc is a big player in the connection with the emotions and in balancing emotions. And especially if you're in some kind of a disaster, everybody's going to be a little on edge, so it's going to be a really useful thing to have on hand.
So that is for like nervous system.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And then there's going to be the CO2, and you know, there's a lot of stuff here and there about carbon footprint and this and that and everything else. You guys, we're made of carbon, you know, and the trees are building their bark, their limbs, their leaves with carbon. The trees are giving off oxygen. We have a synergistic relationship with our trees and plants and ourselves. So we need to be very mindful of that and put your thinking cap on about that one. Okay, now another thing would be calcium, and that would be when you're working with bone issues, okay? And then another of the Gans is going to be CuO2, and this is when you're working with infections.
Okay.
Okay, so you're going to have something, and actually this combination right here was something that Dr. Paul put together, and you'll see it in cold and flu remedy, and the proportions he used were specific to that, and I said remedy, I meant relief. So it was his go-to combination if he felt a scratchy throat. You know how you just feel a little funky if you're or your nose feels funny if you're coming down with something. that would stop it in its tracks, and usually it was stopped within hours. Okay, now the other thing that's part of this is CH3. And CH3 will help to be a booster to the combinations that you put together. So I guess it'd be like, if you didn't use the CH3, it'd be like using a candle. And if you did use the CH3, maybe it'd be more like having a flashlight. Okay. So it's just the amount of energy output that you're looking for from the combination you're putting together. I will make the disclaimer for those of you who have made inquiries. What about CH3 if there's an issue with cancer? It says never to use the CH3 with cancer. That means don't use patches on either side of a tumor that have the CH3 in it, because it may boost the energy of the tumor, and that's not what you're after. Okay, but otherwise CH3 is also thought to be maybe part of what makes the connection with the body and the soul and the plasma energy. So I wouldn't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater by not using something there. And so when you have these, and when you have the plasmatic first aid chart, then it gives you certain guidelines on what would you use with cuts and skin infections. Well, you would take CO2 and CuO2. So you take a couple of these. And by the way, if you're outside of the country and you order the first aid kit, you're going to get all of what's in the vials in pairs of pads instead. And there will be a pair of pads for the zinc, a pair of pads for the CO2, for each one of these items I've discussed. The other thing that is part of this that's included in the vials are amino acids and hemoglobin. Now people ask me, does that mean somebody's blood is in here? No, what it means is the energies of what makes up the blood, such as iron, what facilitates what the blood does, are included in the hemoglobin.
The properties of it.
Yes, the properties of it.
So with the pads though, could you put those on a container of water and make a spray, or just use the pads, or yes to both?
Yes to both.
Okay.
What I would do is I would set up a pair of pads, and here we go. These are the mini size, but guess what? They have the same energy fields as the larger size. And let's say this is your clear glass or clear plastic container, and it can be translucent. It can be a color. Now there happens to be vials in here, but you could also set up a container with patches.
Okay.
And if you were mailing things to people and concerned about how they were going to arrive, then I would consider doing the patches. But you're going to have a pair of patches for each one of the energies that's on the plasmatic first aid. Once you have your jar set up, then I would set up spray bottles, because they're very useful. I did a spray on a burn. I burned myself. I had a steam burn here yesterday, and I just grabbed my plasma energy spray bottle and sprayed it all, and
you can just barely see.
You can barely see a little red mark, and trust me, if it hurt, I would not be wearing a big bracelet right next to it. So, but I definitely felt it yesterday and thought, well, I better cover it up. And I used a little cotton round and sprayed it and put it over, and then just taped it on for several hours. So that's a useful thing to do. Always you're going to want to drink. We have on the website, there's a thing about breathing with the plasma energy, and we'll do a video on that. But what Dr. Paul had people do is get like 8 feet of aquarium-sized tubing and coil it all in a jar. And then whatever energy you were after, let's say it was somebody with a lung condition, then you would pour the lung plasma water over the coils in the jar. there would be no water in the coils. And you'd have the ends hanging out of the jar. One end is the air intake, and the other end is what you breathe in on. So that's when they're talking about a inhalable. That's what they're talking about.
Okay.
And also for something on that idea, what some people have done is to get like a nebulizer and put the plasma energy water in a nebulizer, and then just have it all there to inhale.
Okay.
Okay, so then for broken bones, it's going to tell, well, I'm sorry, I may have gone off the rails there. For cuts and skin infections, you're going to use CO2 and the copper, the CuO. Okay, for broken bones, you're going to use a combination of, and they tell you how many parts: 4 parts of CuO, 2 parts of CO2, 2 parts of Ca, calcium, 1 part of CH3, and 1 part of the amino acids. Now, the amino acids are included in here, so you would adjust your parts accordingly. And for water purification, it's saying 11 parts of CuO, and I'm not even sure I understand what 1001. Use 50% tap water.
100I.
100I. Okay. Guess what? That's a mystery, you guys.
Okay, but this is on the website.
Yes.
And they can print it out
Yes.
and use it as a guide.
Exactly.
Okay.
And generally, when you order the first aid chart, I will email this Plasmatic first aid chart to you, and then you're able to print it out.
Right, and it is very useful because there's a lot of information on it, and it is very specific as to each situation. So
Right.
then you can do the combination that you need to do for a burn or a skin infection or a broken bone or anything like that.
Right.
Okay.
And I'll back up on the mystery thing here on the water purification. 11 parts of copper oxide, and 1 part of the other number is iodine.
Iodine.
Yeah.
So it wasn't I. Okay.
It wasn't I. You were right.
Okay.
So there you have it, and I hope this has been useful. Steph, do you have any other questions?
I don't have questions, but I think it's important to just touch on intention.
Yes.
Especially with this first aid situation.
I agree.
So if I can read this.
Please do.
Okay. This is our intention and invitation. All plasma energy that originated from Lynn and Paul's efforts joins every other bit of plasma energy that originated from Lynn and Paul's efforts, wherever that plasma energy is in the world, on the land, in the waters of the rivers, lakes, and oceans, in the air, and in the clouds above. All that plasma energy brings Lynn and Paul's intention everywhere, on, above, around, and below the surface of planet Earth, that all living beings are filled with love, peace, joy, freedom, and well-being, with the ethics and morality to support the love, peace, joy, freedom, and well-being of all living beings on planet Earth, including the living being, our home, planet Earth. All of like intentions are invited to join.
Thank you.
Yep.
And you might just add that there was always a lot of intention put into everything that was made here.
Yes, my father always put intention into everything that he did, from teaching us how to take out the garbage to making plasma energy.
That he did.
Yes.
Well, thank you. Our website is plasmaenergysolution.com. If you've liked this video, please give me a thumbs up, and do share it with your friends and family. Thank you so much.
Thank you.